Hi there, welcome back to the channel and welcome to what is to be the final video in the restoration series of this Philips Model 148, also known as the Town & Country. RCA did a version. I think just about everybody got a shot at this, what was it called, a lunchbox radio. So it is a battery and mains powered set. During the course of this video, you'll see that a problem arises which kind of makes it a little bit different, not in a good way, but it's redeemable. So let me show you what I did to this thing to get it to the state. As you can see, it is complete. And at the end, I'll do a quick reception test. And so we can have a look and see just how good these things were or are. If you enjoy this sort of thing, stick around, enjoy the video. The one thing I wanted to get out of the way was the cabinet. I wanted to get it all done because I wasn't sure just how much work it required. And as it turned out, it was actually quite a bit. I tried to clean the cabinet without disassembling it, and then I found that that was not going to work. So I took it all apart, and it's not that difficult. You remove a few screws, if I can remember correctly. You actually remove this back end by removing two screws over here. That comes off, then there's screws down there and up there. The front comes off, the sides come off, and that allowed me to clean everything up and to polish the screws, polish everything nicely and put it back. And where it's most obvious is actually on the handle. You see all these were removed and polished, and I know that those two sets are brass and the other one is steel, but that got nicely cleaned up and polished and then put back. What I found with the cabinet itself is that the sides are absolutely immaculate. The Bakelite sides, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there are a few scratches on here that I couldn't get rid of. These are actually down to the metal. No amount of polishing will get rid of that. I had a choice, which was to try and paint over it with a very fine paintbrush. But that normally gives itself away because this has got a gloss. So I decided to clean it up as much as I could, polish it as much as I could, and just accept that this thing's going to look like it's been around for a while, and it sure has. And it looks pretty good. It does. It looks very good. All the screws have been polished up and everything is as good as it's going to get. So now I can put this aside and focus on the tasks that I have left on the chassis itself. While I was putting things up, the things that will be seen, I decided to sort out the knobs. If you recall, there were some stains. And what I did was I spray painted them with old gold, and it looks original. It looks really good. What I did was, instead of removing this whole thing, is I taped everything up nicely, and I did one small section, let it dry a little bit, turned around a bit more, did another small section. It took a while, but it certainly was easier than disassembling the whole thing. And if you look at this over here, it actually looks aged, which is the look that I wanted to give it. I didn't want a gloss or anything like that. This thing looks really good. I'm really pleased with that. That is about all I had to do cosmetically. Mechanically, I've still got a problem. This switch isn't working. This switch it's stuck. The front wafer section is fine. The back one is jammed. And as much as I've tried to sort it out, I just can't get it to work. It's warped and it's not clicking in place. I have to end up doing it manually with a screwdriver pushed in there, and I certainly want this thing to switch on when I close or open the lid. So I had to think about it. This thing's got 4 wafers, or I should say it's got 4 sections. There's one switch there, one on the underside, and one on the other side. Now, what is it we switch here? Well, we switch the mains. Both lines of the mains, both the phase and the neutral, get switched over here. And if I'm not mistaken, it's on the back side. And on the front here, the B plus gets switched in and the heater supply gets switched in. So I have to decide which two I'm going to eliminate. Eliminating one of the mains lines is easy. You can do with one main switch just for one of the mains lines, preferably the live. But there's a problem when I think about what to eliminate next, because I can't switch the heater and the B plus because there's only one left. And obviously I could try and get a different switch for here, but I doubt I'm going to find it. And I also don't want to wait around weeks and weeks and weeks for shipment to arrive, even if I could find a used one. So I'm going to have to make a decision as to what I do with that. And I haven't really decided yet, because if I just switched on, let's say that I switched on one of the main sides and the B+, then what happens is that if I'm working on battery and I put on heaters, the heater's on all the time. It's not switched off. If I'm running on mains, that mains on-off switch will provide the B+ and the heaters because they derive from the same source. But if I'm using it on battery, I have a problem. I really would need to switch off or on both the B+ and the heater supply. So I'm in two minds. And if I don't switch on the heat, maybe I shouldn't switch on the B+. Let me think about it. There's something I need to think here, and that is what happens when I use it on mains and what happens when I use it on battery. And I'll come up with a solution. Let me think some more. Well, that's been done. And the news is we no longer have a battery/mains tube radio. As it is, we've got a mains tube radio because I took the heater supply or the heater switching from here and I joined it together so the heaters are permanently on, which is fine if you're using it on mains. It's not fine if you're using it on battery because that means you'll have a continuous drain on this. And what else do we have? I've took the mains, one of the mains connectors from the back here, and I put it in the front here where the heaters were. And I also shorted the other mains switch because the back end is not working at all. And now this works. That front part is working perfectly fine. The back was completely messed up. Now, what does this mean? Well, what it means is that I've eliminated some switches. If we look at the schematic here, what I've done is I've left that switch in. I've shorted that out and I've eliminated one of these. So one of them is being switched on here and the B+ is being switched on here. Now, if I want to use it just on mains, I wouldn't even need that B+ switching, but I didn't want to change too much on that switch because my hope is that I will be able to get one of those switches sometime and then I could just come here and reverse it. It should be quite easy. I am not going to stop the project for now because I really want to get this thing finished. I've got other stuff to start on. So that's what I've decided to do. It's a shame, but to be quite frank with you, I never ever planned to work this on 90-volt batteries. I'm not going to buy, 10 PP3s, whatever they call them. They are fairly expensive. The drain wouldn't be too much. 14 milliamps is not a big deal, but it's just not something I'd be doing. The fact that this is perfectly reversible and quite easily reversible is a bonus for me. So that's what I've done. And that means that really this thing is done, barring the alignment that I need to do. But to do that, I need to put that bottom cover on. And then all I'm going to do is a check of the IF alignment. And we'll see how the RF alignment is. The RF alignment, there are indications on the instructions as to where you align it to, for which frequencies. There's a 600 Hertz and 1420, I believe it is. From what I've been checking here, it's sort of in the right direction, but I'm not sure if it's exact. So as much as this decision was tough, I had to take it. I just couldn't fix the back element of the switch. It just was messing me around. So there we go. I could also obviously use one of these switches to drive a relay. I could put the relay in the back there and that would switch everything that I wanted, as many switches as I liked, but I just don't want to change it that much. This is a very simple mod. I can reverse it quite easily and I'm happy with that. Now the IF alignment of this is very simple. You feed a signal into the first grid of the V1, which is literally through this antenna wire coming in here, and the signal generator ground goes to ground there. So effectively into the antenna, you can have or not have the antenna connected, whichever you prefer. And then you've got 4 transformers, 4 coils to adjust. These 2 in the bottom here and 2 at the top. Now what you need to do is you need to put this in. Remember, if this thing is not in, because this is a shield, it will interfere with your, I think these antenna wires come out here. I'm not sure now. No, they come out straight. No, this goes over here, being stupid. Of course. So that goes over here. I want to make sure I'm not touching anything. That would not be good. Just put the screws in. I'm not going to tighten them too much because I may still have to go in there. but the shield effect will work even without it being too tight. And we can get to those cores through here. I'll put a 455 kilohertz signal on here, modulated with a tone. I've got the signal generator at the minimum amplitude that I can get it to, and I will put a voltmeter, an AC voltmeter across the speaker. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. How am I going to get to the speaker wires? It's a bit of a challenge. You know what? I'm going to do it by ear. I think I'll do it by ear. I've heard the tone enough to know when it peaks, and it's not a big deal anyway, so let's get it going. Switched it on. I've got the volume on max. Let's see where we are. I may have to attenuate the actual signal generator signal through the switch attenuator a bit, depending on how loud it gets. That's not too bad. Take away the modulation. Modulation. Okay, that's good enough. See if I can do it by ear. It's going down. Oh, that's definitely going up. Oh, I have to attenuate 6 dB. I wonder if that's not gone in too far. There, it's going down. That seems to be about a peak. What about this guy? Whoa! Give it another 6 dB. Too much. That seems to be about a peak on the tone anyway. Now the top. Oh dear, how am I going to get into there? Ooh, this is going to be fun. They do tell you to do this on batteries, so you don't have to worry about getting into there, but I can't get it. Don't want to touch anything here. That seems to be in place. So what it looks like, someone messed with the cores on the bottom, but not at the top. I can just hear a slight change. No, that was at the peak. Well, that was pretty simple. Switch this off. And that seems to be a sort of okay IF alignment. Not much at the top, certainly quite a change at the bottom. So it looks like somebody was in there. Also, those cores were a little looser than the top ones. So I think in terms of IF, I've optimized this. I'm going to have a quick check on the alignment, see how we are. Let me show you something. They tell us to align the oscillator at 7ZL, which is this guy over here, at 600 kilohertz, and this is where I'm getting it. Okay, see the distance from the ZL, okay? Now they tell us to go to 1420 kilohertz, and they tell us to go up to 3XY, which is over there. See that? That seems to be exactly the same shift to the right on the upper frequency as it is in the lower frequency. So the problem isn't a question of adjusting the oscillator. The problem, or the solution, is to move the dial. So what I've really got to do is move the dial pointer from there by, what, 4 millimeters to the left, and that'll correct both the lower frequency and the upper frequency, which means this thing is fine. This thing is perfectly fine. Good, I'm happy. I'm going to do that. All right, folks, it took a while, but it's all inside now. I decided to just get on with it. I was really getting a little frustrated with some of the little quirks that I was finding here, and decided just to get this sorted out, do a final test, because that really disappointed me. The fact that my battery switch, or rather the switch that I have on there now, eliminates the possibility of using it on battery, left me a little bit despondent. But anyway, it's in. This thing was literally doing things in reverse. Put it back in, tightened it all up. It fit nicely, not a problem. I then soldered the antenna wires that were flapping around there, so that's also in place. And then I discovered another small problem, and it has to do with the makeshift socket or plug that I made for this. Let me show you. But first, let me close this up. And again, it's no big deal. This thing just fits into those two slots at the bottom here. You tighten those up and it's good to go. But let me show you the problem with the socket. If you recall, I'd made a makeshift socket, plug socket for this thing, so that when you move this aside, you put that in there. It holds this back, which is a switch to change from battery to mains operation. And I realized this hole here was too small for the thickness of the plug that I'd made here out of hot glue. So I had to spend another 15 minutes or so trying to cut this down. And this really convinces me that I cannot live without a 3D printer. Hope my wife doesn't hear that. So I'm getting more and more reasons, finding more and more reasons to justify the fact that I cannot live without one. And thanks to a lot of suggestions you guys made, I've actually found a few possibilities, and it should be decided soon. Anyway, I'm going to plug this in. I'll show you the result, and we can do a final test. So here she is. My first battery-powered tube radio, which is no longer battery-powered. Kind of ironic, isn't it? The first battery-powered tube radio that doesn't work on batteries anymore because the switch is kaput. Anyway, this is the result. It actually, I like the look of it. I think this is really as simple as it gets, right? I mean, you've got no controls visible at all. You switch it on by opening the lid. It activates the switch on the side, and you just wait for it to warm up, which is what I'm doing. And what I've noticed is that this thing comes on really fast. It goes from nothing to everything in one burst. There we go. I've actually got the mini whip connected to the antenna at the back, because this thing with just with the coils receives very little here. It's normal. Same with the ferrite rods. But let's see what we can get. This is mid-morning, so I don't expect much, but I just want to do a quick test to show you what we're picking up. This is Canary Islands, which is pretty normal for me to pick up here.
Acabó por devorar casi la mitad de la masa forestal de Tenerife. Un incendio.
Perfectamente. Cuando llegue cuando la campaña se inicia ya.
Aquí no. Tú eres mi amigo, gracias.
This is our local station. And that's it, folks. That is it. Our Philips is done, barring the replacement of the switch. So what can I tell you? It's a little disappointing that all it has is AM. Now, I know that my friends in Australia still receive a lot of AM. I mean, I look at Dave Tipton's stuff and Don's Radio Shed. You guys switch on AM. You've got local stations everywhere. But here, well, it's a disappointment. Medium wave for me is a novel. It's basically a curiosity. I pick up a lot of stuff from the Canary Islands. In fact, one of the stations from the Canary Islands comes across on various frequencies. I've mentioned this quite a few times before. They've got repeaters on all the islands. And because I am across the sea, you know, quite a way away, I pick up all their transmissions from the different islands, same station. So when you go across the medium wave band, you hear the same voice in about 6 places. And that is normal. It's not a problem with the radio. And then I've got the one local station here, which is, I mean, I would never listen to it anyway, but it's a curiosity to get it to pick up. The whole idea of restoring these things is to make them work the way they're supposed to work, the way they worked when they left the factory, or better. And of course, to do that, you've got to test reception. The fact that it's only medium wave obviously limits the choices. If I had long wave is quite useless as well, but if I had short wave, okay, I can do some DXing at night, and again, the curiosity factor would be increased. But other than that, FM for me is what I really go for. I like the FM receivers because we do have, you know, quite a few FM stations here, and that's what I listen to anyway. So that's it, my friends. This is my, what do they call it? A lunchbox radio? Somebody mentioned it was called a lunchbox radio. Apparently these things are dime a dozen in Australia and the States in the RCA version. But it was an interesting experience. It allowed me to try or experiment with some new tubes. I must admit I was a little bit nervous because I'd never worked with those tubes. You know, 1 volt filaments, 1.4 volt filaments, they sound a bit flimsy to me, but again, that's what they were, that's the way they were, and that's the way they work, and it works very well. I had to replace the entire complement of tubes except the rectifier, but other than that, it was a unique experience. So I hope you have enjoyed this, and judging from the views that this series is getting, I think a lot of you are enjoying this. So I want to thank you for your company. And if you have enjoyed this, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon and PayPal. Links are in the description below. Once again, thanks for watching. Bye for now. And most of all, stay safe.